Hello everyone, David here back again to review another episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and this time it is for episode named 4,722 Hours. 4,722 hours. And even though it's kind of difficult to not think about that song when you think of the title for this episode, it's even more difficult to not think about a particular movie that came out this year, or this month I should say, that is being regarded as one of the best of the year, and that is called The Martian. Because I definitely saw some really strong parallels between that movie and this week's episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. that pretty much tells the story of how Simmons survived in whatever planet she found herself on this entire time, and essentially becomes a bottle episode that centers on just her on this planet. Well, the first half of the episode is just her on this planet with nobody else from the main cast, and it doesn't come back to Earth. It's all her. It's all focused on her, which is why the title also kind of references Danny Boyle's 127 Hours with James Franco, where we found that character in that movie to be alone by himself for the majority of the 90-minute runtime of that film. And this time we have Simmons basically. I know that she's telling the story to Fitz, but it never really cuts to her saying it all started and then fade out. It just instantly starts with her being swallowed up by the monolith 6 months ago in the season 2 finale, and then we cut to her falling on this planet for the very first time and her just coping with the isolation. And one of my favorite moments, I know this is a technical aesthetic, but I don't know what it was about it. But one of my favorite moments about the episode entirely was early on, where we have the opening prologue of Fitz trying to pass the time, trying to figure out how to get back, scouting the area, taking notes about the atmosphere, the terrain, all that kind of stuff. And then when she finds herself in times of despair, it cuts to like a plane, and then instead of showing us the traditional Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. title, it just shows up very quietly, fades in, and then fades back out with no music, no flash. It's just white text, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm like, oh my god, they really are catering to the theme of isolation and having Simmons pushing herself to the limits in order to be able to survive. You see her talking to herself by recording logs onto her phone, or sometimes just talking to herself, period, which is a little weird, but at the same time kind of cute because she's got that witty, charismatic personality. So whenever she says something to herself, it's fun to listen to. And you see her finding things. You see her searching for water and finding it, only to find out that there's some kind of creature in there that she then becomes the alpha female over and kills and eats, and just all these different details made Simmons a much more likable and sympathetic character. Not to say that she wasn't before, but this is really what made her stand out, not only in this episode, but possibly this season. And I know we're only 5 episodes in, but she's already becoming one of the essential parts to the main storyline that's happening here in Season 3. And you just think about how she used to be back in Season 1, where she was all quirky and nerdy, and along with Fitz, they were kind of like these characters that were in the background that were mainly just there for nerdy comic relief, and now they have become layered characters. And now she kind of has actually a few steps ahead of Fitz in terms of development, but Fitz, I feel, could catch up. And you remember that Fitz was the guy that was looking for her this whole time and had that breakdown in front of the monolith. So these two characters have definitely come a long way, and I feel like this episode is one of the best examples to show that. And Fitz having been looking for her this entire time is what made it more hurtful to know that eventually Simmons comes across this guy named Will, who manages to kind of almost trap her in a sense. And then after learning that she has not been messed with mentally, they kind of form this partnership in order to be able to get back home after she learns that this is actually an astronaut from 2001. And we kind of knew that eventually people or certain objects were going to find themselves on this planet because this monolith has been all over the world and has managed to swallow up certain things. And eventually one of those things is going to be a person. So it's not necessarily a stretch that Simmons was going to find another person, but did it have to be this guy? Because in all honesty, I think when she stumbles upon Will is where I feel like the episode lost just a little bit of flavor, just a little bit. Just a little bit, because Will himself was a likable character. At first, he was kind of like generic white guy. You know, he was that embodiment of characters like Han Solo or Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford characters, as well as I can't remember. God, it's been so long since I've seen the X-Files, but Duchovny's character. I can't remember if it was Mulder or Scully. I keep getting the two names confused. I'm sorry. But Duchovny's character from X-Files, or Nathan Fillion from Firefly, that type of character that's very rebellious, very angsty, and you pair a character off like that with someone like Simmons, who's very by the book, very upbeat like that, and you got that contrast, you got that opposites attract type of tension going on between them. And at first, I was like, okay, maybe they're not gonna do it, they're not gonna force it, but then later on, it does happen. And I'm honestly at odds with myself. There's a part of me that's kind of happy for Simmons because she has been alone for so long. At that point where they tried to escape, that failed, and she was just in even more despair than she was before. So I was kind of like, okay, she has someone to comfort her. But at the same time, my man Fitz, he's out there trying, risking his life over there in Saudi Arabia or whatever, risking his neck for you, and you're gonna do him wrong like that? Oh, and I can't fault Simmons too much. It's just a little thing that I wish hadn't had happened. I just wish it didn't happen. It doesn't make me dislike Simmons more, because of how well she's played by Elizabeth Henstridge. And like I said, this guy's a likable guy. He earned his way into me liking him for the duration of this episode. But it's just something that I almost wish didn't happen, because now there's the possibility of there being a love triangle thing within this third season of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm like, no, do not do this. Especially when it's revealed at the end that Fitz wants to help Simmons get him back. This is actually the person that Fitz wants to go back. Not Fitz. Simmons wants to go back for, and why she wants to rebuild this thing all over again. And that's where I went. Okay, either Fitz has the biggest heart of gold on that planet, or in that entire universe. Either that, or Fitz is tremendously stupid, and the dude needs to move outside of this friend zone that he has found himself for the longest time. Because, dude, I honestly, I know this is a TV show, and it could be written a certain way, but if this was real life, I would just smack that dude in the head, upside the head, and be like, dude, just render this person as your best friend and move on. And in a way, the inclusion of Will is why I didn't like the ending so much, and why that was my overall main problem with the episode. That it's honestly just one complaint, but it's a harrowing one. It's one that actually does debilitate the current storytelling structure of this arc with Simmons from the beginning of the season. And that is that when she came back from the portal, she was going through some serious PTSD. Every tiny little noise scared her. She was very withdrawn, very quiet, hardly talked to anybody, hardly opened up, even to Fitz, who's her best friend. And yet, in this episode, once she meets Will, she looks like she's just fine. And she even leaves the planet with this possibility that maybe he's still alive. She didn't see his dead body, and we as viewers know that he's still alive because of that little stinger at the end. He managed to get away from this evil thing that is around the planet that was never really disclosed, and they say that it transforms into something in order to trick you into killing you or something like that. I wish that was a little bit more fleshed out. But I understand it's only one episode, and chances are we might be going back in later episodes, and maybe then we'll find out what this thing is and how it might connect to the entire MCU. But we as viewers know that the guy's alive. Simmons and Fitz have a notion that he might still be alive. So what exactly was the reason for Simmons being so screwed up? I imagine that some really harsh things would have happened in that planet. If she was by herself the entire time, I would have understood it. If she had met up with Will, and then Will ended up dying right in front of her in a very traumatic way, I would have bought it. But that's not how it played out. In fact, the tone was consistently lighthearted, despite that brief moment of despair after that failed attempt to try to get through the portal. They went back and had sex. Okay, so I failed to see how that this entire time Simmons was very screwed up in the head, and yet this episode didn't necessarily earn that. That is mainly my biggest complaint with the episode, and it's a humongous storytelling error. Nevertheless, I can recognize that this was a really well made episode with standout performance by Elizabeth Henstridge as Simmons, and she definitely carried the episode. And like I said, I liked Will. I liked the chemistry between the two of them, and how they made for likable characters, and for why that second half of the episode was more than just tolerable, it was likable. It's just that from the grand picture of things, it didn't really do much for me to buy Simmons' PTSD after coming back to Earth, because she looked like she had been through some hell, and we saw those tidbits of her feeling hunted, only to learn that she was really not hunted for that very long because she had somebody else with her. So from my point of view, I feel like she either should have been alone the entirety of the time so that she can definitely go through some stuff, or if she had been paired off with Will, have him be killed off. Have him be killed off and have that bit wrapped up so that then Simmons has something to feel bad for when she did come back, and would keep away from Fitz looking like somebody who's being blinded by love. Because honestly, that's how I'm feeling about the whole scenario. So being that as it may, I have to give 4,722 hours a solid 8 out of 10. It's a fun episode, one that will probably remain in my mind for this first half of the season, and one that I can think back to. But along with the good that came out of this episode that I'll remember, I'll also remember how it kind of messed with Simmons' backstory and how I wish it would have played out. So let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.